Welcome to Pain in the Arts, the podcast where the pursuit of meaningful art meets the unpredictable demands of real life.
I am Briellen.
And I am Lyndon.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome indeed.
Well, what a busy and colourful morning we've just had. We have been to our daughter's school to participate in the colour run. If you've never seen these things, it's where, I don't know, people stand around the edges of a track and squirt you with coloured paint and chalk and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, last year I attended the same event and our daughter had been ill for quite a long time. It had been a very serious illness, and at the time of the colour run, she'd just been really relearning how to walk and getting engaged with people again and beginning to enjoy life a little bit again. And I just remember being so overwhelmed with joy just to see her face and to see her enjoying this event. And literally I've blocked out every single other thing about it other than the joy on her face. So it actually took me by surprise when I got there this morning, and she was really happy to see us. She's a lot better this year than she was last year. She grabbed our hands and started running us around the track, and we got hit with all this coloured paint. And I was wearing my brand new white runners and was not at all prepared. I just had completely forgot that I was going to get covered in paint. So I've just spent half an hour in the laundry trying to clean my shoes.
You went along looking like a canvas, and I thought, you must want to be involved and part of it and get it all on you. I
was wearing white, almost everything.
I was wearing pretty much all black, which is probably just as bad. But I didn't care, whereas you actually had on your stark whites.
And for the last few days, I've been wearing painting clothes because I'm restoring some furniture outside. So I should have just put that on and wouldn't have mattered. But and I'd even sent along a brand new white T-shirt for little Birdie to wear while she was doing the colour run, so she'd have all the colours on her, and didn't even think about that we would get coded as well. It didn't occur to me. So, well, there we go.
It's called the colour run.
It is. My runners have just about survived, other than the little bits in the stitching. I'm always going to see that hot pink and bright orange in there, but I'll take it. It was a great morning.
Good start to the day.
It was.
I don't want to be an old man shouting at the clouds, but can we talk about social media and marketing?
Oh, yes, we can.
We probably could for hours, probably all day.
Yep. The love-hate relationship that, I don't know, do all humans have this at this point with social media? We certainly do. So,
well, I don't particularly want to talk about just social media that broadly, but in particular marketing on social media.
Yes.
And whether we have to do it, if we have something that we want to promote, or if we've got something that we want to sell, are we obliged to use social media, or is there alternatives? It does sound like a loaded question because clearly we've thought about this.
We have thought about this. We've wrestled with it, and it would be really good to discuss the ins and outs, and I guess where our thinking is headed at this point, because there's probably more than one right answer, I would say. But
well, what got us on this path, I guess, was thinking about the possibilities of doing a podcast, or not even doing a podcast, but just doing joint work together, and what that would look like and what elements would be part of it. And then when I started thinking about, would we need an Instagram page? Do we have to have Facebook? It just, all of those things, it just put me off. I didn't want to do it.
Absolutely.
And the background too, for some perspective, is I started a YouTube channel the year before. I'm not sure if anyone's heard about this, but there was a pandemic.
All right. Little blip on the radar.
Probably a year before that. I remember being sick in bed for a couple of weeks, and I'm not sure what it was with, but it was before the Rona. And I was watching YouTube videos, and I got inspired to do a YouTube channel called The Guitaring Show, which there's one video up at the moment because I took them all down.
Oh, they're gone?
I took them down.
Even I watched it, and I'm no guitarist.
It was such a lot of work. I've still got a lot of the equipment. It just was a lot of work. Like, I'm talking, for someone like me, every episode took like 15 hours.
Yeah, it's a huge workload.
And I wasn't, like, in doing that work, I wasn't satisfied with what I was creating. I wasn't happy with the results.
Yep. And I guess you start that sort of thing knowing that there'll be lots of work to start with before you find the rhythm, and you're really starting to create something that you are proud of and enjoy, but such a hard job to get to that point.
It looks easy when you see other YouTubers, and it's probably just a matter of time before some of them reveal what effect it's had on them, I guess.
What an extensive workload, or perhaps how big their teams are.
Well, if they're trying to do it on their own, I don't know how you could do that long term. But I think if you've had any experience in editing video and filming as well, that was the other big one.
Yeah.
Then I think you're at least starting on good footing.
Yeah. So essentially you were writing the shows, coming up with the content, co-presenting with good friend Zach.
Zach, yeah.
And then having to do all of the post work and then also try to do all of the marketing work. So you were doing the job of a dozen people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea was at some point you get a team behind you, or you at least get maybe people that can do editing and all that for you.
And mind you, at the same time you were also working in a studio and running a coffee van.
Yeah.
So
it was ambitious.
Yeah.
But these things always are. And so a lot of work. And from that, I thought, you know what, maybe Twitch is the answer. And I did a Twitch trial and I got some extra equipment.
Tell us what Twitch is for those who haven't come across
it. I know completely what Twitch is. But it started out, my understanding is it started out as a live gaming community. So
it's like live streaming.
Yeah. So you'd be watching people playing games or whatever. I mean, it obviously turned into much more than that, and there's people doing great stuff on there. So I reset the studio to be a live streaming studio, and that was a much better setup than for the YouTube channel because I could keep everything set up in place. Like when we were doing the YouTube, we had to bring in extra equipment. You needed certain quality kind of cameras in order to do the 3-camera kind of shoot. We needed to have a camera that was on the pedal board, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, there was a lot of setup time, pack down time because it was a working studio. So I couldn't just leave it all set up. But whereas the Twitch stuff, I had it all set up so that, I could pretty much plug in and go. So I did a few trials of that and that worked. That was actually a good experience. But then I realized it wasn't really for me.
Right.
And the main reason was it wasn't going to help me record my music.
Yep. So it wasn't getting you any closer to what you really wanted to be pursuing in your creative life. Yep. Which is a good reason to stop doing it, really.
And it was a hard thing to stop doing. Look, honestly, I hadn't really started. I'd done some test recordings, but the things that I'd done, or some test live streams, the things I'd done I'd really enjoyed. I'd enjoyed people sort of connecting with me in real time, and I was excited about it. However, it is something in and of itself, and it requires like everything, honestly, requires consistency and work. And if you're going to be doing anything of value, it takes time, and so therefore you need to look at, well, if I'm spending my time here, what am I sacrificing? And I would have been sacrificing, like you said, what I really wanted to do, which is make music that I'm proud of, whether that's my own stuff or whether it's with other people.
Yep.
And it wasn't going to help me achieve that. So I stopped doing that, and I should probably sell some of the equipment that's still sitting here. So getting back to the idea of us creating something together, which we'll get into a bit later, of which this podcast is part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the big things that made me think, I don't know if I want to do this, is the idea of that commitment to social media as a marketing tool.
Yes. Yep.
And I just thought, here we go again. This is going to be another thing that is a barrier to what I really want to do. So that's when I started looking at alternatives to see if there was another way. So maybe it's a good idea to look at the things that put me off from using social media as a marketing tool. So just off the top of my head, the first one was I didn't like going on social media.
Yep.
Forget about marketing.
Yeah.
I don't like
there.
how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Now that we could talk about till the cows come home.
Yeah.
Or the sheep, as they were just in our front yard.
We did just have sheep in our front yard.
That you just called the council to come.
I
They
know.
were quick.
They were. What a good citizen I feel like I am, calling the council about the sheep in my front
The
yard.
two sheep that should not be in suburban Melbourne, but they were. There is a guy that I see an old bloke down the road, and he has sheep on the side of like a major road.
And he's literally shepherding them.
He's shepherding the sheep.
We
I know
have a shepherd
it is
down the road.
It is a little bizarre.
It is. He's just like getting them to eat the verge grass, I guess, because it saves him buying hay. I don't know why he does it, but he's there
maybe
quite often.
you know what? Maybe it's what we're talking about. Maybe it is a form of not marketing, but just it's the slow movement.
It's a slow movement.
Slow movement.
He's just trying to move
people.
them from one place to another and just
And two
walk
of
them there.
Two of them, I'm assuming they're his lambs, got tired of being with the flock. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how but they've done it twice now. So
One
the
of them was-
councillors will be
Yeah, the
having
rangers
barbecue tonight.
came down. They were quick.
I know they were quick.
And
We
they-
should call them on all the cats that are hanging around.
Yeah. I've called them before about the massive dogs jumping across the fence. Okay, we don't want to talk about this.
Oh, no. So the first thing was social media. Just don't like being on it. Like I enjoy watching stuff that's funny, but I don't like the trap of it, and I don't like how it makes me feel, and I don't like that without me even realizing it, I've compared what I'm doing to what someone else is doing.
Yeah.
So it immediately takes me off of the path that I was quite happily on, quite content with where I'm at with things, and all of a sudden I'm not. So I didn't like that about it.
So, yeah, it's such a big barrier to creating a profile and a social media presence is having to actually then be on there and check out everyone else's presences.
And I noticed too with your copywriting business, you have an Instagram page, but you're rarely on there.
I'm almost never on there.
You've been running that business for 3 or 4 years, and it's been growing exponentially in that time. So that sort of tells me you don't need it.
No.
You don't need it for that business.
No.
Some people do need it, and it works fine for them. But it's really about finding what works in your situation and for the type of life that you foresee for yourself. That's probably the other thing. So the second thing I didn't like about the idea of marketing using social media was I don't like the fact that we're at the mercy of the algorithms. So even just if you have a simple Facebook page and you do a post just to your family and friends and you say, hey, we've got this thing on this weekend, we're going to move house, can you help? It doesn't go to everyone.
Yeah.
Like you can't know that everyone has got it. Now, even if they were staring at their screen for 24 hours, it still might not come up.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah, you're just being fed whatever
All kinds
they
of things.
want you to be fed, really. Yeah.
So that's not
So it's really out
helpful.
of the person's control. It's out of our control what we see, and it's out of our control what we're giving others to see.
right.
Yeah.
And the third thing that sort of relates to that is trends. Do I want to be subject to trends? Is the social media marketing, is that a trend in itself? Like, is that something that I would bust my gut for a couple of years, only for it to sort of die away and there's some new better thing come along?
Yeah, that's true.
Which I don't have time for that. So you just got to find what works. We think this is going to work well for us because we can see it fitting into our lifestyle. And our lifestyle is one of, we both are working from home. That's partly it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a life of unpredictability, and we never know what's around the corner for us. So that's part of it as well. Anyway, this was a long way around getting to what we arrived at as a viable alternative to social media marketing, which is slow marketing.
Yes.
And so maybe that's what we'll talk more about today is slow marketing.
Yeah, I think that we're not the only people having those questions, wrestling with this thing of how on earth do we get our stuff out there? How do people find us? What are we doing to promote ourselves or our work? I think there's lots of creative people that are asking those very same questions, having to come up with plans. And I think there's a lot of people spending a lot of time doing some social media marketing that are not enjoying it in the least. There's authors that I follow that are jumping through hoops to do something every day on Instagram. And I think it's exhausting. I think you've got to pick one thing to do. So if it's Instagram, great, you do it and you have that consistency, but you've got to do something that you can be at peace with or that you can decide to do and not hate it the whole time. So maybe this will be an alternative for some other people as well, because it's certainly something that's so far resonating with us a lot more and we're much more comfortable with than just jumping on social media and hammering out some message.
I'm also aware that I've thought about this for so long that I feel like everyone knows about it, and that's wouldn't be the case.
No.
This whole slow marketing idea, I don't even know if how does something become an official term? I don't even know if that's an official term, but I came across a YouTuber called The Calm Creative, and it was her video on slow marketing that really caught my attention. And as you were saying before, that it resonated with me.
Yeah.
She's from Sweden, Louise Stigl, I think that's her name, Stigell.
Shout out to Louise. We like your style.
Well, she's calming to listen to. I think that was
that's helpful.
Probably the first thing. But she's an artist and writer who happened upon the idea of calm marketing after suffering burnout and depression. So I'm calling it slow marketing. Maybe she's calling it calm marketing. Maybe that's branding because she's the calm creative. I'm not super sure.
Right.
But basically, just to explain what calm marketing is, it's a value-driven approach that is prioritizing a deep connection with your people. So it's very thoughtful. You're not tied to daily algorithms that you need to beat. You don't have to sort of work out what the changes in the algorithms now are and what sort of stuff you need to post and how long your introductions need to be and all that kind of stuff. So what calm marketing is slow, it's consistent, it's quality content. And it's about building deeper relationships with your people. And when I say your people, it's like, you find the 100 people or the 150 or the 250, whatever, that are your people, they're into your stuff and they're happy to hear from you and they're happy to support you. And that support can take many different forms. So it's in stark contrast to social media, which is about getting millions of followers and then hoping that some of those will follow you for long enough that they will somehow
buy something from you.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, and we might get onto Patreon as well, because Jack Conte, who is the founder of Patreon, did a whole, I think it might have been a TED talk, something like that, on the death of the follower. So he is predicting that this whole idea of going after millions of followers is something that will die out, or at least not be a thing for creative people. But we'll see if we can get onto that.
Yeah.
Yes. So why move away from social media? So the platforms don't suit everyone.
Yep.
And as I just mentioned, social media, as we currently know and understand it, is not kind to creative people. It's not even designed to help us.
No.
It's more and more, it's becoming quite obvious that it's designed for advertisers.
Yes. Yep. It's designed for ads and it works against many creative people's processes. It also works against our audiences, in the way that it's training people to have their attention grabbed and kept for milliseconds before it's grabbed by something else. That's not helping us to engage an audience and to form that relationship with an audience that happens over the span of, if you're, for instance, watching a play, you as an audience member, you're one half of the relationship that's going on between the creator and the audience, the way you receive it and react and respond, and you have your thoughts provoked and stimulated. That's a whole half of the equation, and there just isn't the room and the time for that in social media. So it's working against audience and receivers of the content.
So coming back to the calm creative, on a practical level, something that Louise said made so much sense. It's a great point. So when she was thinking about the type of people that buy her art and where they buy it, this is what she came up with. They buy her art in galleries, in quiet places of contemplation. They're considered. No one's yelling at them.
Right. So what you're saying is when people are buying Louise's art, they're going into a place being inspired and captivated by the proximity to that art and the time that they have to really reflect on it,
right,
to actually interact with that piece of artwork rather than just seeing it scrolling quickly by on a reel and having to be kind of punched in the face with it within 2 seconds or whatever and go, oh, yeah, buy now.
Yeah, they're just a different kind of person. Not to say that they're not on social media or that they don't even purchase stuff on social media. The question is, do they purchase art or do they purchase her art? Do they engage with her in a way that then puts food on her table,
right,
via social media? And she's looked in it and gone, no, they don't. And so I think, well, for a lot of obviously visual artists, that would be true. I think about the times where I've bought visual art. Yeah, it's been literally being in the room with the art because I want to be there and not having that chance to just sort of scroll on to the next thing, go, that's a good thing, I'll come back to it later, or I'll save it. You know how many saved lists I've got on Instagram? And similar to Louise, how she had burnout and depression, and that led to her going, okay, how can I do this better? How can I do this in a way that suits my style? Yeah, I had a what would be called a breakdown, I guess, or burnout. Mm-hmm. What was the other term for it?
I think we were referring to it as an overload of your nervous system, like perhaps a nervous system disorder at that time.
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. So it really does make you think about how you move about in the world and how you want to continue moving about through the world.
Yeah.
So that's what's led me here and why we're talking about it, and why move away from social media. Well, it's the impact on mental health and creativity. I'm not saying that it's because of social media that my nervous system shut down, not at all, but just looking forward going, do I want to be subject to something that gives me very little control and that might not even suit the audience I'm trying to reach? Mm-hmm. The answer is a resounding no. So that's one more reason to move away from social media for marketing. I think you mentioned algorithm fatigue, or at least fatigue in people that are trying to keep up with the posting. And I guess that is algorithm fatigue, isn't it? The unpredictability of the changes of the algorithm and how they can affect the engagement despite all your best efforts.
Right.
The freedom to build something on your own terms is another benefit of moving away from Facebook, and we're talking Instagram a lot today, and there's probably other platforms as well where algorithms are involved, but being able to create something that you're in control of and that you can own as well, like even just having your own website that you're in control of, it is, in the long term, is a big deal. And when we were talking before about people going into a gallery and connecting with someone's work, that connection can also happen through a newsletter where you're being invited into the artist's world. And I've enjoyed being part of newsletters in the past. So the connection can happen in other ways than just in this sort of hyperactive social media environment.
Just gives them that time to connect in a more meaningful way and further their reach as well, but certainly value the connection that they have with people who do subscribe or who do click on their blogs or get to them via LinkedIn or find them on their website or whatever. So, yeah, there is definitely a lot of value in those longer, slower processes of connecting with an audience.
Mm. And I like the idea of even feeling like I don't have to keep up with whatever is current. Like it does sort of sound old-fashioned and like even sort of disconnecting from it all. It's like to sort of do this slow marketing thing, it's actually not really disconnecting at all from modern life and from the internet or
No.
whatever. It's not like
Still using it.
it's not like we're suddenly going off grid and trying to run everything off of a solar panel.
Not handing out flyers at the traffic lights or anything.
Just knowing that I can do something at my pace, I can find an audience that is into what I'm into, and that we can be moving along together regardless of what's happening on Facebook or what the latest thing is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that I don't have to feel worried that I haven't posted something today.
Yeah.
You know? Or I don't have to be thinking about the masses. I'm just literally thinking about my work or our work in this instance and what part of it would be cool to show the people that are interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
we're not interested in sort of trying to grab people's attention or ram something into people's faces. We'd much rather be invitational and say, come join us, see what we're doing. Is this interesting to you? And if so, then we welcome people to be part of what we're creating. It's just a much nicer way of going about it.
Can I also say, I'm not good at doing social media marketing.
Yeah, it's rubbish. I don't like it.
Some people are really good at it, and I just look at what they do and I go, that is awesome. I bet you they did that in like 2 minutes. That would have taken me half a day.
It's an absolute art form in itself. And I work with some web developers, and we all sit there like we literally work in the internet. It is our...
You work in the internet.
We work in the internet. We're making the internet. We're developing stuff all the time. They're developing websites. I'm writing content to go on websites and online, and none of us enjoy social media marketing.
Oh, really?
None of us. So, yeah, we're all looking to outsource our social media marketing for our businesses. So, yeah, we don't like it. Like some people, like as you say, are really good at it. And to a certain extent, businesses, as we talked about before, you've got to choose something in some ways. You might choose LinkedIn. Like some businesses go, LinkedIn is our thing. It's a business connection. We're a logistics company or whatever. We don't really need to be on Instagram, but LinkedIn helps us form those connections. And so that's what they choose, and that's what they target their marketing on. Some people, it's YouTube, like we've said, and Instagram's obviously a big one for a lot of people. But you've sort of got to choose something, I guess, to market. But if you don't enjoy a certain platform or a certain way of doing it, it's very, very hard to be good at it and to be consistent with it, to have lots of ideas. And as we're talking about, it's not something that either you or I want to do and have our focus on that, like constantly thinking about what's the next reel we're going to put up, what's the next thing we can shoot, what's something interesting, how are we looking after our brand in this way? Have we got our kind of look happening and all that sort of thing? There's just so many threads to it that they're not the threads that we want to be picking up in our lives to be focusing on and putting our energy towards. Yeah,
it's just super important for us to be able to recognize how we want to do things, what works for us and what works for people that follow us or support us. So I think that's the thing to identify, because there's so many options And for creative people, yeah, I would argue that for a long time, people like us have felt like we're at the mercy of social media. And it's really encroached on how we do things and how it's made us feel. But something I wanted to mention is that boredom is good for you. I think on the whole, boredom is good. Hasn't it been interesting with our kids how, and maybe even when we were kids as well, like no one likes being bored. But if you're bored for long enough, you start finding things to do. For creative people, we need to allow ourselves the time to be bored. I mean, I never feel like I'm bored. Just that time where we're not doing anything.
Yep. Where the brain's got to find a new pathway. It's something new to contemplate and think about, a new problem to solve or a new thing to make up.
Yeah, and there's enough things in this world and in life that don't allow you that time, or that you need to fight to get that time. And that's where social media has really encroached further on that.
Absolutely.
You know, and being bored is an essential element to embrace as a creative person. It allows space for new ideas, new thoughts, and new perspectives on old ideas. And you really need that. I really need that in order to move my art forward. So that's also a reason that we've moved away from social media, and specifically for pain in the arts endeavours, let's call it.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And we think that we're connecting with an audience who also holds those same values, who also doesn't want their time whittled away by things just trying to grab their attention. We think we're connecting with people who would like to think deeper about things, who would like to enjoy the journey of discovery alongside us. We want to be able to invite our listeners into a collaboration with us of exploring different topics, exploring things that are interesting to us as the creators of things, and others who are creating things or who might just be interested in the creative process. So we feel like we're able to give better value for our listeners through this platform rather than just trying to create a quick clip every day and put it on Instagram.
So I guess, how do we build relationships and deeper connections with people? Like, how do you do it through a podcast? Well, I mentioned Jack Conte earlier as the founder of Patreon, and he was talking about the death of the followers and so on, an idea that he's had. But basically, in a nutshell, Patreon's been going for maybe a decade, and it's been set up from the outset as a platform for creative people. So we've chosen Patreon as our platform to engage more deeply with our community that we are slowly growing. And Patreon is a sustainable way for us to connect directly with our own community. We're in control, and we get to offer a behind-the-scenes look at what we do. We can offer whatever content we like at whatever pace we like. It's really just between us and the people that follow us, or in this case, subscribe. It's a free subscription, but then there's different tiers. So if you want more, you might want to pay for that.
Yep.
And that's how artists and creatives like ourselves are supported. I'm just reading off their website now. It says, Patreon is your space to create what excites you most, rough or polished, big or small. Hundreds of thousands of creators use Patreon to share videos, podcasts, writing, art, music, recipes, and more with their most passionate fans. So we're just beginning our journey into Patreon at the moment. And as we go on, there's going to be more things that we're offering on there. Bree, you're doing your own podcast.
I am. I'm quite excited. There will be another podcast produced in the studio.
We've got to work out the music for it.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. So stay tuned for that. It will be a deeper dive into the ins and outs of my novel writing escapades. So that will be something else that will be up there on Patreon.
We've got a title for that yet?
No, not yet.
We were looking at something like The Search for Home, or...
My novel's called No Word for Home, so maybe a little bit of a twist on that. So there's extra things like that you will be able to find on Patreon. And we're just highlighting this, wanting to tell you guys why we're making the decisions that we're making. Tell us your thoughts. We hope that more of you who have some kind of artistic endeavors, we hope that you'll also hit us up with your ideas on marketing, how you're going about finding your audience and engaging with them. For those who are just interested in the artistic process, check out our Patreon and check out other artists as well, because it is just a different way to connect. And yeah, we hope you will enjoy our podcast, enjoy following along, and enjoy the slower movement that that we're enjoying. Well, much more reflective.
No one's ever accused me of being fast. So
no.
I think too, just in closing this episode out, it's not always about the end result, or it can't be. I mean, even though you have something in mind that you're creating, it's the life you want to live as you're creating that. And that sort of comes into what we're talking about today. Yeah, marketing is like, such an icky word. It sounds a little corporate, and it sounds like the last thing we'd want to engage with. But this is possibly a way that we can do it where it's meaningful, and we can do it where there's less overwhelm and we're not battered by forces that we can't see and don't understand. Thanks for listening to Pain in the Arts. You can support the show on patreon.com/Pain in the Arts Life, or just type in Pain in the Arts on the Patreon website and you will find our faces.
Follow our show. Please remember to subscribe to Pain in the Arts in your favourite podcast service so you never miss a show. For more information, visit our website, www.paininthearts.life, for free resources and articles covering some of the themes that we discuss in our podcast. Thank you very much once again for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next week.
Bye.